Buenas tardes. Me llamo Wataru Ono, but this is the end of my Spanish language. I'm sorry. Today I'm going to give my presentation titled A Tale of Two Parks in Madrid and Tokyo, and you will see why. And as the gentleman just introduced, I'm working for the World Heritage Research Center of PREC Institute, Inc. This is a Japanese consulting firm, and I'm a member of Japan ICOMOS, and I'm also a member of the International Scientific Committee on Cultural Landscapes and Cultural Roots. This is a bit of information about Japan's World Heritage Sites. We have 14 cultural heritage, such as Kyoto, Nara, and Fujisan, Mount Fuji, and 4 natural heritage, like Ogasawara Islands. And we have 11 candidates on the tentative list of Japan. And the more candidate sites are waiting to be listed on tentative list. And as a consultant, I have been working in the preparation of 10 cultural sites in Japan. And I am now working with 3 candidate sites that are already on tentative list. And also, I'm working with other candidate sites which are trying to be listed on the tentative list. So from my personal and professional experience, I want to express my congratulations on the city of Madrid and also people of Madrid for the successful inscription of your site on the tentative list of Spain. It is already an achievement, and it has been very tough. So first I want to congratulate you on this. But of course, in comparison with Spain, which has 39 cultural sites and 3 natural sites and 2 mixed sites, and you have 27 tentative lists, then it's going to take some time to be really nominated for inscription. You already have so many World Heritages. That is really great thing. And before I lose my time, I want to extend my muchas gracias to the City Council and the people of Madrid for organizing this important meeting and inviting me to Madrid, and particularly Miss Ana Luisa Del Cro has made a lot of arrangements for making it possible for us to come to Madrid. And also I want to thank Spanish National Committee of ICOMOS, particularly Ms. Maria Rosa Suarez Inclán Ducasi. I think this is my 3rd time or 4th time to come to Madrid, but all of my visit to Madrid were actually invitation from Ms. Maria Rosa. So without Maria Rosa, I would never have come to Madrid. And also, I thank Ms. Carmen Agnon Feliu. She has been, to me, a kind of a mother to the World Heritage Convention. And she has also made a great contribution to Japanese World Cultural Heritages. And also, Ms. Monica Luengo-Agnon has been working as the president of the ISC on Cultural Landscape, and also Professor Victor Fernandez Salinas. He is actually the only gentleman among the listed people. So, he was the president of ICOMOS Scientific Committee on Cultural Roots, and now he has been just elected as a member of executive committee of ICOMOS headquarters, so he's going to be very busy. And for that, I also thank. And of course, Secretariat and the members of Spanish National Committee of ICOMOS deserve the very sincere thanks from me. And I also want to thank Ms. Kunio Suyo, the president of our company. She is the person who appointed this World Heritage project to me. So without her, I would never be here. And also, thank you very much, distinguished audience today. Thank you for waiting patiently for me to come back to this place. We had a very good work in the morning in the park, and we had a very good lunch. And now I'm going to make my presentation as succinct as possible. This is a picture of Tokyo. Maybe you know already Tokyo. This is the capital of Japan with a population of 13.35 million people. And this central Tokyo area has a population of 9 million people. This is a huge city. And you see how we have the developments. But in the background, you have Fujisan, Mount Fuji, which was inscribed as a World Cultural Heritage 2 years ago. But Mount Fuji is located far away from Tokyo, so it's not located inside Tokyo. And I'm going to introduce you to Ueno Park in Tokyo, because I think this park has some similarities with your park here. And this park is one of the urban parks in Tokyo. You can see the trees surrounded by the urban area. This is the Ueno Park. And this is a very precious green space, recreation space in Tokyo. And it has some museums inside the park. And also it has a zoo. And there are some cultural properties located inside the park. This is Retiro Park in Madrid, surrounded by urban developments. And this is Ueno Park in Tokyo. You see the green area and the water. And this park is one of the oldest parks of Japan, established in 1873. Of course, we have older historic gardens, but when we talk about the parks, this park is one of the oldest in Japan. And this place, even before 1873, this place was the green space as the compounds of a Buddhist temple of the Shogun family. So this place is also a longer history than park itself. And maybe you can compare these parks and find some similarities, such as both parks are located in the urban area, and you have a big railway station near the park. We have Ueno Station just next to Ueno Park. And we have some museums, including a National Museum, inside the park. You have, of course, Prado Museum next to the park. And we have a zoo, and you have a botanic garden. Those elements are similar elements. But I tell you in the beginning that the Ueno Park would not be nominated for inscription on the World Heritage List. It has similar attributes and characteristics, but I don't think this Ueno Park is going to be nominated for inscription on the World Heritage Site. There's no plan like that, at least at this stage. But Ueno Park in Tokyo is surrounded by those things like a Buddhist temple, Kan-Eiji Buddhist temple, which used to be larger and which used to cover the entire area of Ueno Park as its compounds. But now the Buddhist temple is smaller, and most of the area is open as an urban park. And in the surrounding area, we have universities like Tokyo University of the Arts, and also the University of Tokyo. And we have a station just next to the park. And inside Ueno Park, by the way, the surface area of this park is 53.9 hectares almost half of the Retiro Park. And we have Tokyo National Museum inside the park, and the Art Museum of Tokyo Metropolitan Government, and the Ueno Zoological Garden, National Museum of Science, and the National Museum of Western Art. We have those many facilities inside this park. This is the same information expressed on a simpler map. And one of the museums located inside the park is the National Museum of Western Art of Japan. I just introduced that this building, not the park, is on the tentative list of Japan. It was put on the tentative list in 2007 as one component part of the French-led nomination Louvre Architecture Urbaine de Le Corbusier. So this French nomination is going to be considered next year in Bonn. So if that is accepted, this museum building might be the first world cultural heritage in Tokyo. This building was built in 1959. It was designed by Le Corbusier. But after that, new hall and underground exhibition hall were added by the design of a Japanese architect, Kunio Maekawa. He studied architecture under Le Corbusier. So basically, this is one of the architecture that gives testimony to the work of Le Corbusier. And also, this zoo is located in the park. This Ueno Zoo is the first zoological garden in Japan, established in 1882. And the giant panda is a very popular animal in Japan. And it was brought from China in 1972 on the occasion of the beginning of diplomatic relation between Japan and China. So this zoo has a history too. But more than anything else, Ueno Park in Tokyo is a popular recreation space used by many people. More than 10 million visitors per year enjoy this park. You can see some photos, including cherry blossom party and some festivals, traditional festivals, and modern festivals, concerts, etc. Many activities. And this is the information about individual facilities from the viewpoint of the number of people who use them. In total, more than 10 million visitors per year come to the park. But during the cherry blossom viewing season in the spring, usually it's only a few weeks. More than 2 million people come to this place to enjoy viewing cherry blossoms. Very crowded. With regard to Ueno Zoo, 3.49 million people visit this zoo. And the National Museum of Art attracts 1.77 million people in 1 year. And the National Museum of Western Art has a little fewer visitors, but still 0.45 million people come to the National Museum of Western Art. And the Ueno Park celebrated 140 years anniversary last year, in 2013. And this is a map drawn in 1877. And when this park was created, the government, we had new governments in Japan after the samurai government, feudal government ended. And the new government tried to learn from Western world, Europe and the USA about many things. And the creation of parks was one of those attempts. And the government issued the decree saying that the recreation sports visited by many people, such as scenic sports, popular tourist destinations, and the historic sites, should be owned and managed by the national government and made into parks to be enjoyed by the people of Japan. This was the decree issued by the Meiji government in 1873. And according to this, the compound of a Buddhist temple was converted to a public park. And another important person said in the same year that in order for Japan to compete with other countries, we need to study hard. And in order to study hard, we need to have healthy body and spirit. And we need the parks for that purpose. So those were some of the philosophies in the beginning of parks in Japan, reflecting the fact that that was the time when Japan was struggling to become a modern country after the Edo shogunate samurai government that continued from 1600 ended in 1868. So I just wanted to say that Ueno Park reflects such historical events in Japan. Not only the existing recreational space, but it is also it bears witness to such historic developments in Japan. And so, as I said, Ueno Park has a longer history than the history as a park. Before it became a park in 1873, it was the compound of a Buddhist temple. And this is one of the old drawings depicting the Kan-age Buddhist temple in the Edo period. This work is by Utagawa Hiroshige, a famous Japanese wood block print artist. And this temple dates from 1625. And this is also an old scroll painting depicting people of Edo, which is present-day Tokyo, enjoying cherry blossoms at Ueno. This painting is now stored in the British Museum. So people have been enjoying cherry blossoms in Japan since ancient times, even before Edo period. But it is also a tradition of the Ueno Park for people to enjoy cherry blossoms. But I don't think many people know this fact. They are just enjoying sake and the cherry blossoms in Ueno Park now. And these are old drawings too, depicting famous spots of Edo period, including scenes at present-day Ueno Park. The right drawing is a work by Hiroshige Utagawa too, ukiyo-e, wood block print. And now we also have a similar facility and a similar view still now in this park too. And after it became a park in 1873, this place was used as the venue of national exposition of Japan, like this one, first one, which it was organized in 1877. In this morning, we had explanation from the guy that this park, your park, was also venue for national expositions. So I think there are some similarities about the use of the park in the urban area. It's interesting. And this drawing was made in 1877 after it became a park. And in 1914, also another national exposition of Japan was organized at the Ueno Park. And this painting is from that time. And after that, we have many photos of people enjoying the Ueno Park, and also aerial photos and other information about the history of this park. And this particular photo is from 1958, showing people enjoying the park in front of the National Museum of Japan. And there are historic buildings inside this park. Some historic buildings are protected by the national law of Japan as important cultural properties. Those historic buildings you can see in these photos. The top one is a Buddhist temple building, and the middle one is a 5-storied pagoda. This also used to be a building of a Buddhist temple. And these maps show the distribution of historic buildings dating from the Edo period, and also other cultural properties and the cultural facilities that were added in the later period, in the modern period. And these maps were created in the process of discussing the grand design of Ueno Park on the occasion of its 140th anniversary year. The Tokyo Metropolitan Government organized expert meetings and also carried out studies to characterize the historic value and the contemporary value of this park in order to revitalize the Ueno Park. And in that process, they identified those cultural resources and discussed how to protect them or how to revitalize the contemporary functions of the park as a recreational park in harmony with the preservation of these historic buildings and the cultural properties. And our company, my colleagues participated in this project too. And as a result, the grand design for Ueno Park was compiled in 2008. I do not go into details, but this is a zoning map for the use of this Ueno Park. And of course, there are more detailed maps created for the planning purposes by different zones. And this is an image perspective for the future use of Ueno Park. And you see a lot of cherry blossoms. And after this grand design, the Tokyo Metropolitan Government produced Ueno Park Revitalization Plan in 2009 based on the grand design. And now they are implementing the revitalization projects based on this plan. It's not completed yet, but they are going to complete this projects in 2 years. And based on the experience from these projects of Ueno Park in Tokyo, I summarized the opportunities and the challenges for parks in urban area as living heritage. Of course, Ueno Park and the Retina Park are parks in the contemporary context, but maybe we find the values not only as contemporary parks, but also as something more. Maybe we can call place or the value of place or any other appropriate word. But in the context of World Heritage, we have to consider whether it is a cultural heritage or natural heritage. it's very simple. Those parks are not natural heritage. But next we have to consider whether they are monuments or a group of buildings or sites. And this is also, I think, relatively simple. Parks most probably belong to sites, place, but sites can be many different types, like archaeological sites, other type of sites, and the cultural landscape is one of the categories that fall under sites. So, but in defining the parks under which of these categories is not a simple issue. Because historically, cultural landscapes have been in reality either historic gardens, agricultural landscapes, sacred mountains, those things. And we do not see urban parks yet. But still, I also have a feeling that value of parks can be evaluated from the viewpoint or approach from cultural landscape. And the most interesting approach is from a continuing landscape. Of course, it is a designed landscape, but still, I think evaluation as a continuing landscape would be more interesting. Because in a continuing landscape, we have the process that makes landscape. And in terms of agricultural landscape, it is easier to define what is the process that makes these agricultural landscapes. In the case of coffee cultural landscape, it is coffee production that makes the landscape. And in the case of tequila landscape, agave landscape, it is tequila production. But in the case of a park, it is not so easy. Maybe the use and the function as a park or a place is the factor that makes the landscape. But it's not so easily understandable as agricultural landscapes. Because people use the place for amenity or quality of urban landscape, or just the use by many people might be the determining factor, but they are not so concrete. So we might be able to say that landscape would be, in this particular case of public parks in the urban area, is an accumulation, records, or memory of layers of historical uses by people in the urban area of that particular location. In that sense, with regard to the authenticity, maybe the location, authenticity of location, and the authenticity of spirit as identity of the city would be the most important in evaluating these types of heritage. That's my just a wild idea, not a conclusion. But for the future work, of course, it will be important to carry out comparative analysis to obtain more understanding about these new attempts to evaluate public parks in urban areas as heritage. Of course, the comparative analysis with parks in the urban areas in other metropolitan cities would be important. And the comparison with Ueno Park might be useful if you need some comparison with Japan. And it might be also an idea to make comparison with not only parks, but also green space, like green belts around cities, because they are also related to identity of cities. But I'm not sure if this is really a good idea or not, just a suggestion. But in addition, I think it is necessary and it is a challenge to clarify what you are going to protect. In other words, what you are going to pass on to future generations with the park. Because as we already had, parks have many things that will change. So we have to differentiate what we are going to protect and what we are going to change. There's no fixed answer. It's just a matter of decision-making and explaining in the nomination dossier. In that process, I think it is important to clarify about that in terms of the physical component parts of the nominated property. What are really the component parts of the heritage you are going to nominate? And also, you can also explain about this from the viewpoint of tangible and intangible attributes of outstanding universal value. And these issues are directly related to the issue of how to define the buffer zone, because in order to define the buffer zone, the area and also the function of the buffer zone, we need to identify and clarify what we are going to protect in the first stage. And this is a challenge for any World Heritage nomination. And in other words, what change will be accepted is a difficult issue. And it is difficult to decide actually beforehand, in my opinion, in the nomination dossier. Because we cannot predict exactly what change will happen inside or outside the park. So in my opinion, in such difficult situations, it might be an idea to present a process of decision-making, such as heritage impact assessment or expert judgment. Might be a good system to complement the buffer zone, because we talk a lot about the buffer zone, if it is necessary and what should be the buffer zone. But the buffer zone is actually not the perfect answer to solve many problems we have, particularly in the urban area. So we have something else to complement the function of the buffer zone. And in the case of the landscape, when we think about the buffer zone, it is, broadly speaking, two aspects. Of course, the buffer zone is not only for the protection of views, but to make the story simple, I'm talking only about views. And the views can be the view of the property from outside, but also the view from within the property toward outside is important, particularly in the case of Retina Park or the park in the urban areas. In the case of Fujisan, of course, we have both types of views, but probably more important is the view from outside toward Mount Fuji. By the way, Mount Fuji was inscribed as a cultural heritage in 2013. It's last year. But it was listed on the tentative list of Japan in 2007. So it took 6 years to be finally inscribed on the list of World Heritage. But actually the discussion started much earlier, since 1992, when Japan joined the World Heritage Convention. And in the case of Fujisan, the discussion was more difficult than the Retiro Park, because, as you might also wonder, people wondered Fujisan should whether Fujisan should be natural site or cultural site. And at the first glance, the first impression is natural site. But after the discussion, the Japanese government gave up the idea of nominating the Fujisan for natural heritage, and they started to work for the nomination based on cultural value. But still, in the process, I think the Fujisan is a very interesting case because the Fujisan is nobody objects to the value of Fujisan in Japan. Every Japanese national, it's out of question. The Fujisan is really important for Japanese people. But when we talk about the universal value, it's another thing. We were not so confident that Fujisan might be or could be accepted by people outside Japan as universally important. So we had a long discussion about that too. And in that process, actually works of art by Hiroshige and Hokusai played an important role. So this might be also an interesting experience for Retina Park 2, the Retiro Park 2. The Retiro Park itself might not be easily understood as a universal park, even though it is a park for older people. But when we think about the Prado Museum, I believe that it has been working as the magnet to attract people from around the world. And those people might not only visit Prado Museum, but also they had experience together with the park as one whole. So that was the idea when I compared my experience of Fujisan with this place. And in the delineation of the property area and the buffer zone, we also had difficulty. And in doing that, we took into consideration views from important viewpoints toward the Fujisan. And we decided on the boundaries. And Fujisan was inscribed successfully. And this is one of the views, beautiful views, again with cherry blossoms, from one Shinto shrine toward Mount Fuji. And this, in order to protect this view, we have to put in place control between Mount Fuji and this Shinto shrine that was included in the buffer zone. But still, the ICOMOS requested Japan to improve, strengthen more control in the buffer zone in order to protect the value of Mount Fuji from the viewpoint of cultural landscapes. But I have to tell you that the Mount Fuji was not inscribed as a cultural landscape. In the beginning, we considered that possibility, but in the process of the nomination dossier preparation, Japanese government decided not to go for a cultural landscape because if we nominate Mount Fuji as a cultural landscape, we would be requested to include a wider area in the property area, not in the buffer zone. So we nominated Mount Fuji as a cultural heritage, but not as a cultural landscape. But still, ICOMOS requested Japan to make a management plan based on the understanding that, based on cultural landscape approach, even though it is not inscribed as a cultural landscape. I'm not sure if that was really a wise decision, but it is a decision anyway. And another example is historic monuments of ancient Nara. This is already one of the first cultural heritages in Japan. And we have development here too. In that developed area, we have cultural heritages, including ancient Buddhist temple buildings, and also archaeological site of a palace dating back to 8th century. And here we also have issue of a buffer zone and the protection of views. This is one of the component parts, Tosho Daiji Temple, and also Yakushiji Temple. From these Buddhist temples, which are still working as religious facilities, we have beautiful landscapes in the background. And as a measure to protect these historic landscape in the background, we need to have control in the developed area, mainly the limit on the height of the buildings. And we are still working on improving the control, even after the inscription on the World Heritage List. So the inscription is not the end. It is also a start, beginning of further efforts to protect the value. And because I think I need to catch up, I need to save some time. I finish my presentation here. Muchas gracias. And I want to congratulate again Madrid city and the people on successful shortlisting of Retiro and Prado. And I wish Madrid future success. Muchas gracias.